Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We are continuing on today with our conversation about women's financial empowerment. And my guest today is Amy Bradbury. And Amy is the CEO of Empowered Profit. It is a full-service bookkeeping and tax agency focused on working with female-led businesses. Along with her team, Empowered Profit supports their clients with understanding their numbers so they can use that data to make decisions in their businesses and their personal financial lives. And full disclosure, I think I say this in the episode, but I work with Amy. She is my accounting and bookkeeping guru. I love and adore her because she really approaches money so differently from most accountants and bookkeepers that I've ever worked with. So stay tuned for this really wonderful conversation about women and money and budgeting and organizing your money and all of that shit, all that important stuff. But before we get to that, I just want to remind you about my new offering, which is my focused strategy sessions. They are a 3 or 6 session coaching series designed to help you with critical decisions and focused strategies. So these sessions can help you develop a long-term divorce strategy. I can help prepare you to work effectively with your attorney, which can potentially save you thousands of dollars. I can help plan for the difficult conversations that are ahead with your spouse, with your kids, all of that, with your parents. I can help you make the decision to stay or go once and for all, and so many more things. They're a perfect way to get clarity, confidence, and direction without feeling overwhelmed. My private coaching packages have up until now I've only had one, which is my full 12 session package. And, it's a huge time and financial investment. So these focused strategy sessions, either 3 or 6, are a great way to have one-on-one access to me without that longer-term commitment. So if you've been considering coaching but haven't felt ready for that long-term commitment, this is your chance to get the support that you need from me. So all you need to do is go to kateanthony.com/apply. You're going to fill out a questionnaire. There's no consultation necessary. And I will personally recommend the best package for your needs, 3 or 6, just depending on what you're going through. I can usually tell we can totally knock this out in 3 or we're going to need a little bit more. So kateanthony.com/apply. And now we're going to shift our focus back to my conversation with Amy Bradbury. Amy, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about all things money.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited. Full disclosure. I just want everyone to know the full disclosure is that you are my financial guru.
Yes.
The reason that I asked you to come on to my podcast is because I love working with you so much. So
I love
there you
working
go.
with you
Yeah. It's weird because you're all up in my business, but that's exactly why I hired you. I was like, so explain to the people, if you would, a little bit about what it is that you do for people so that they know what we're talking about.
I run a traditional accounting firm in the context that we work with business owners. We do their bookkeeping, we maintain their QuickBooks, right? Like all of those things. We give you a report that says, here's where your money is going. We file a tax return for you, sort of like all of the check the box things that go with accounting. And where we are very different and where I really like working with my clients is more in the conversations that we have about money and the conversations that we have about how money impacts your life and what money means in your life and what good and bad does money mean to you and what good and bad emotions does money bring up for you. And those kinds of conversations, which are like not on a spreadsheet, not on a report, not part of the traditional male accounting conversation, right? Like before I started my business, I worked in a lot of accounting firms and most all of my bosses were men and most all of my bosses only cared about the spreadsheet numbers being correct. Did you send the reports to the client? Move on. How much time did you bill? And I'm like, well, they had some questions. We don't have time for questions. We don't do that. We don't have conversations with the clients. Like we provide a service, that's it. And I'm like, well, this actually isn't a service that you're providing. they didn't ask for my feedback. And so, I started my own business so that I could do it my way.
One of the things that you say, I think probably the reason I immediately hired you was that on your website, on the homepage, you say, and we do it all while slowly but surely working to dismantle the racist patriarchy and the money mindset BS it has instilled in us. And I was like, oh, she's my person.
Yes. And there's so much of it that's so hidden, right? I mean, I guess that's, when it's instilled, it is so hidden that it is so hard to even recognize it and think about it, right? Like, even if we think about like hobbies and the way that hobbies that women have and hobbies that men have are spoken about and talked about, right? It is completely fine and seen as a very normal thing to do for a man to go out and spend a ton of money on golf clubs, to go golfing, to go fishing, to go hunting, right? Whatever their hobbies are require all of this extra equipment and spending time away, normally from family, home duties, parenting, whatever they have, right, in their life. And it's like, oh, that's what men do. But then women want to buy a lipstick or get a manicure. And it's like, oh, these silly girl things. And it's like,
right. How much do you really need to spend on your hair?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Do I need your hair done again? Well, yeah.
Right.
Do you need another putter? Do you need another golf club? Like, I don't think the golf club is what's going to make you good at golf, dear. I think.
And not to say that getting our hair done and buying lipstick are our hobbies, right? But even
Correct.
Women's hobbies, quote, women's hobbies, right? The things that we tend towards.
Yeah. We're told that our hobbies are shopping.
Right.
But then when the men shop for things, it's seen as like, oh, they're buying those things because that's for their hobby versus women are buying those things because we're frivolous and silly.
And I bet a lot of women who are listening to this are nodding their heads and like, yeah, this is part of why our marriage broke down.
Yes.
Because of the level of disrespect for our personhood, which is really what that is.
Yes.
That was present in our marriages. And we also talk about the way that money is this sort of male patriarchal, like, yes, the way that we spend our money, but also the way that we talk about money, the money, like terminology and how, like, I love to talk about how things like, even like, in like crypto, how like the bros, like the crypto bros talk about this stuff in ways that are so like word salady and complex. They're actually quite simple concepts, but there's a way that we talk about money and that financial literacy is presented that makes it sound really hard and complicated.
For sure. And that's by design, I believe, right? Like the same way that we don't really want to educate people in this country, because when you have a country full of educated people, they might start questioning what you're telling them to do, right? It goes the
ding,
same
ding,
way.
Ding, 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 ding.
And it's like, oh, if we make this seem so complex and hard, and we tell women over and over again that they're just not good at math, or they just don't get it, or it's okay, sweetheart, your husband will take care of this for you. Don't worry. You don't need to really understand this. And we get those messages from birth. It's the plot of many movies. It's the Disney princess. It's it's the things that, unfortunately, for a lot of us, our mothers were in relationships where they did not have autonomy with their money. And so we saw it happening. And it's really hard to then, when you don't have a model for it to be different, it's really hard to be the one that breaks the model and breaks the mold and makes it different. And it's showing a different option to our children, our nieces and nephews, the children that we're around, but yeah, like it is just over complex for no reason. There is a much simpler way that you can explain things. And, I'll say to a client, okay, well, here's what the IRS says that this means. Da, 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 da. Here's what you actually need to know that means. Like, here's the translated version, like real people speak of like what that really means. And it's like, oh, that actually like isn't that complex. I'm like, no, it really isn't. It really doesn't have to be that hard.
It's so fascinating. I look at that, like there's some like, local ordinance laws and stuff that I've been looking up lately for like things in my neighborhood that I'm like, wait, I don't understand. Like, what is the law about this? Right. Yeah. And then you look it up and the wording is so complicated, and it literally doesn't have to be. That is an overarching theme, obviously, in this patriarchy. Some of what we're talking about, I think, informs our money mindset, the way that we really perceive money in our lives. And we all have a money story, we've all of those things, right? And so you really work with your clients and you talk about how to reframe and adjust this money mindset using like small steps, right? Yeah. Little like baby steps. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also like, what is a money mindset? What is a money story? All of that.
Talking about that. So your money story is essentially just what your thoughts are and what your feelings are about money, what the emotions are that are brought up when you think about money, when you sit down and open up I used to say like, open up your checkbook. Nobody has a checkbook anymore, but like when you sit down and open up your bank account and you look at things like what comes up in your body when you're doing that? And what does that mean? And where is that coming from? There's a lot of throwbacks to obviously therapy and anything that you're looking at, right? And money is just one more tenet of something that you can explore with that, of what the messages were that you received as a child and through the music and the media and the TV shows that we consume and all of those things, and just what society tells us about money. And we are taught that money is complicated, money is hard, women aren't good with it, women are silly with how they spend their money. You should just let men take care of it. When women have a business, it's a cute little business that isn't that lovely. And no, we're not going to give you any venture capital because we don't think you're really serious in business. And we really would rather you be home with the children. And are looked at in a totally different perspective, right? And so we take all of that and we internalize it. And then when we have a business and things maybe aren't going well, we're like, well, that's because women aren't good at business. And instead of just saying, oh, this was a hiccup, like a man would be like, oh, we had a bad month. Women are like, I'm a failure. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I even doing it? Right? And it's just, that's all connected back to our money story. And one of the things we like to work with our clients on, of course, is identifying what that money story is, because when you put it out in the open, you can be less ashamed of it and just know that it is just part of what you need to acknowledge when you're making a decision about your money. You just need to know, okay, this is my money story. This is my thing, right? Money doesn't grow on trees. It's hard to make money. People that have money are evil. Money is bad. Money is the root of all evil. Money is terrible. Look at all of these terrible things that all of these rich people are doing. And then we wonder, I wonder why I can't make any money in my business. Well, yeah, because your subconscious is telling you that if you earn money, you're going to be evil, right? Like, it's all there, right? And so we just have to like uncover it and figure it out. And it's like things that we heard people saying over and over again, like those things I just rattled off, right? So we bring that out, we think about it, and then we look at how our actions in our business and in our life with our money are aligning with what our beliefs really are. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, if I want to change what my actions are, I probably need to change my beliefs. Well, how do I change my beliefs? Well, you don't just wake up one day and be like, well, I don't think that money's evil anymore. There, I cured that. Like, we have to take some small steps away from it and look for examples of situations where there are people that have a lot of money that are doing good things in the world. Whatever the thing is that you've identified that you need to work on. You can't go from, I'll never have enough. Like that was always my money story. There's never enough.
There's never enough.
There's never enough money, right? There's never enough. And so no matter how much money I made, I was actually fulfilling the fact that there was never enough. I would spend all of the money that I made. All of
the money. Yes, that's me.
My belief was that there was never enough money. And so I was making that true. And then I'm like, oh, I actually don't want that to be true. Okay. So then I can stair step and start saying different things to myself, right? There is plenty of money for the things that I choose to spend my money on. There There are places where I can spend my money, where I am doing good with the money that I'm spending, right? There are different, I don't want to use the word mantra because I feel like that gets, the wrong connotation, but there are different ways that we can say things to ourselves to reframe what our money story is that very, very slowly and surely over time will help us change what those beliefs are so that then we can change the actions that we're taking around our money.
Yeah, and I think what you're pointing to is something really interesting, which maybe not mantras, but maybe affirmations. And I have a very different view on affirmations than a lot of people. So, because when I hear the word affirmation, I'm like, ugh. We are going to talk about that on the other side of this break. Okay, so before the break, we started talking about like these mantras or affirmations, but really they're just like different ways that we can frame our mindset and thinking about money. And, the thing about affirmations to me is that like, I've got and I think you're the same, right? A finely tuned bullshit meter.
My bullshit meter is finely tuned because I see inside people's bank accounts. And so I really can identify the bullshit.
Ooh, noted.
We have fired clients that are on Instagram talking about making certain amounts of money and doing certain things. And I've said, do you have another bank account I don't know about? Because you're on Instagram saying you're doing this thing. And like, I literally know the truth. Anyway.
Wow. Ew.
Yeah,
gross.
Very gross.
Gross. Ew. Yes. That's what we call a moral compass and values in our business. The thing about affirmations, right, is like we don't just like stand and stare in the mirror and say, I make $1 million a year.
Write it on a Post-it note and like repeat it over and over again. No.
Right? Like, no, but I love this shift of like, I make enough money to support myself and to I don't know. What did you say?
I don't remember either, but it was something along the lines of like, I make plenty of money for the things I choose to spend my money on, or, something along. It's more about conscious spending, right? Like,
yes.
A lot.
Yes. Shifting from conscious spending, from unconscious spending, like, having your Amazon app like at the ready all the time. And I need that. I totally need that. To like, putting things in your cart and leaving them there and then coming back and checking a couple days later. Right? The things in my cart right now that I go back and I'm like, I 100% believe that I needed that 3 days ago.
It was for sure going to solve a problem for me. Mm-hmm. And now I go back and look and I'm like, what was that? What problem was I trying to solve? What even is that thing? Like, who told me to buy that, right?
What even is this thing? Jesus Christ.
Language is so powerful. So it doesn't even have to be a mantra. It doesn't even have to be an affirmation of like, if you're not into those kinds of things, even just reframing the things that you say. So like your kids might say, Mom, can we blah, blah, blah. Can you buy me this? Can you buy me that? No, we can't afford that. That's probably not true in a lot of cases. It's just that we're actually choosing to spend our money on things other than what your child is asking for. And I grew up in a house where no matter what, I was told we couldn't afford it. And in some cases that was true, but in other cases I was like, yeah, but you're spending a lot of money on this thing over here. So, kids also have a pretty good bullshit meter. Bullshit.
100%.
And, so what we talk about in our house, and I try, I'm not perfect all the time, most of the time, but not all the time, but I try and talk about with my kids is, my daughter is constantly like, can I have this thing? Can I have this thing? This girl at school has this, I want this. And I go, okay, well, we can get that, but we're actually choosing to put our money into a savings account so that we can take that vacation that we've been talking about taking. So it's not that I'm telling her we can't afford that thing. It's that choosing to do different things with that money. And I don't want to buy you another XYZ thing, whatever it is that, again, she'll get it and not even remember why she wanted it. Right. But instead, it's like, how are we, like, what are the goals that we are setting for our money? And then how can we use language to reinforce what those goals are? And one of everybody's big goal seems to be travel. When I talk to clients, I'm like, what are the things you want to do? And they're like, I want to travel. And I'm like, great. Why aren't you traveling? Well, I don't have the money. You probably do. It's
That's
probably
right.
spent on things in your Amazon cart or subscriptions that you bought and paid for in the unconscious spending that happens. And sometimes that is shopping, but sometimes it comes in the form of, if you have a business, you're subscribed to 3 different softwares that actually do the same thing. And you didn't realize that you had all 3 of them, or you're in a level that's higher than what you're using, or you could pay for it annually and save 2 months. Like, it's not about a constrictive budget. I hate the word budget because to me, when you're living on a budget, it means that Dave Ramsey is waiting at every corner to jump out and knock the cup of coffee out of your hand and scream at you for buying another latte and tell you that's why you'll never be able to own a house, right? Like that's what budget is for me. It's like, it's restrictive, it's shaming. It's usually used in the context of women and shopping and like, no more shoes, no more purses. I'm putting you on a budget, right? Like,
right.
Instead, I like to say, let's think about consciously spending. And
Yes.
I want this thing. And so I'm going to put it on the list of things I'm going to buy this month. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's another pair of shoes, another purse, a vehicle, groceries, whatever, right? Like this is my plan of what I'm going to spend this month. And then I'm going to try and stick with that plan.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Although, yeah, okay. So gosh, so many amazing things in there. First of all, I want to say, like when I grew up, the I can't afford it conversation was 100% real. Like 100% real. Like we actually couldn't afford it, or my mom couldn't afford it because she was a single mom raising me by herself in the 70s in New York City and 80s. When I was like, Mommy, I need a Benetton sweater, she was like, no. Did you want to have dinner? But that became so ingrained in
exactly. And that's it. It's not that it wasn't true then. It was true then, but it may or may not be true now.
Right. Well, and what that did for me was then have me be like, I am never going to have that conversation.
Yes. I'm never going to say I can't afford something.
I'm never going to say I can't afford something. And so everything I want, I buy. Yep. And that has gotten me into probably over my lifetime, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, right? Because there were times when, by the way, I literally couldn't fucking afford it. And then I would be like, I'm not going to restrict myself. I'm not doing that. But I was really conscious about having a different conversation with my son at the time, right? Because I didn't want to be my mom. Like, I can't afford it. We can't afford it. We can't afford it, because it was so scarring to me. But it was like, we can't afford that right now, right? I really don't have the money for that right now. But then when I was making more money, he was in on the process of, and he's like, Mom, now we're doing better. Can we like go to the movies, or can we do this thing?
That's a great point. Like having your kids involved in the process and having conversations about money, right? We were never allowed to have money is not something you talk about. Oh my gosh, you'd be so ashamed of money, so ashamed of sex. But you're not supposed to talk about either of those things, but yet you're supposed to be able to show up as an adult and be great at both of them. What?
Right. Exactly.
Right? And I think a lot of us that are in this similar age group, like that grew up in places like that, are like, nope, no more. Like we are talking about it. We are talking about it. And even if the conversation is, the reality is we can't afford that. That's okay. You can still have that conversation with
That's right.
And not just a statement and it's shut down and it's not open for discussion. It's a conversation. And we are doing so much better.
Oh my God. 100%. I think we are. I mean, not perfect, but we really are. So I want to go back and talk about something that you brought up, which is the idea of a budget, because that is a huge thing that women ask about all the time. They're like, how do I create a budget now? How do I haven't been financially involved. I'm not financially literate. So I guess this is a two-parter. Like one is like, how do women become financially literate who maybe have not been up until now and feel very overwhelmed and intimidated? And if budgeting is like Dave Ramsey, I love the idea of Dave Ramsey being around the corner coming to knock your cup of coffee out of your hand. How do we create like what this plan, right? I guess it's a difference between a spending plan and a budget. So those are two, I guess they're somewhat intertwined, right? Creating a financial plan, a spending plan versus a budget is part of financial literacy, I suppose. But I don't know, it's a two-parter.
It is. I think a lot of it starts with just looking at it, just being open to it, noticing what's coming up in your body when you're trying to just being kind to yourself and understanding this is a very slow process. It's going to take a long time. However many years old you are is how long you didn't have the plan and the financial literacy. And so it's not going to change overnight. Okay. And we all put unrealistic expectations on ourselves of how quickly we're going to be able to make things change. And so just starting with the knowledge that it is going to be a process. Yeah. And it could be painful at times, but it is going to be worth it so much in the long end. Printing out the last couple of months of your bank statements and your credit cards and going through with a highlighter and just noticing, where are you spending your money? What are you spending your money on? Putting it into some buckets that have meaning, right? This is how much it costs for me to have my vehicle, right? Car payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, right? Like getting an idea of where your money is going and how much it actually costs to run your life can be a hard thing to go through and do, right? Because we don't know, and we don't know that number. But the thing is that if we don't have the data, we can't make any decisions. And everything has to come from gathering the data. Like you have to have the data. If I'm going to work with somebody, the first thing that we do is we go through the process of gathering the data, because I can't tell you how much your sales needs to be in your business or how much money you should be paying yourself if I don't know what those numbers are of how much you need to live. How much is it? How much does it cost for you to live your life right now? This isn't like you've got to stop spending money on groceries. You can only eat ramen, although ramen these days is delicious. I say that all the time, and it's like ramen these days is not the same as ramen when we were kids and we had to grow up, right? Like ramen is yum and not expensive, right? But like this doesn't mean you have to cut back and not eat the things that you don't have to change the way you're living your life. I just need a number, right?
That's right.
Put stuff in buckets so you can say, this is how much I'm spending in each of these different areas. Then you can compare that with how much money you're bringing in and see what the gap is. And then you can start making a plan for addressing the difference in that gap.
There's something about that's very simple, right? Very simple about like, well, you take a spreadsheet and you write down what your necessary expenses are. And then you write down what your income is. And then there's a discrepancy and you figure that out, right? Yeah. Sounds very simple. And I like the idea of, just you're gathering data. There's no emotion attached to it, right? We have to leave the shame at the door. It's like, we don't do this anymore, but back in the day, it was like getting your starting weight before starting a diet. It's just a number. It's just what's so, right?
Like when I go to the gym, right? I don't weigh myself, but I am interested in how much I can lift. I have goals about that. But if I don't know what I can lift now, how do I know if the plan that I'm working on is going to help me lift more later? I have to have the data. I have to pick up a heavy weight and see if I can lift it up. And then I'm going to train for a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to pick up that same amount of weight and be like, wow, that's actually lighter, right? You have to have that data and that starting
That's
point.
right. That's right. We're going to take one more break. We're going to continue this conversation on the other side. It's all very well and good for us to be like, it's really easy. You just create a spreadsheet and then like you see the difference and like, blah, there it is, right? But first of all, nothing is static. Nothing costs the same every month.
Correct.
And also, if you're getting divorced and you don't really know, like you're trying to figure out like, okay, I think I'm going to get this much spousal support. Like, I've got clients who are like, I don't actually know how much house I can afford. I need to get out of this house. I don't actually know how much house I can afford because I actually don't really know what my spousal or child support, obligations or payments are going to be. Like things are a lot more fluid than they appear at first, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Absolutely.
So how do we create a spending plan that's like realistic? Based on all of these fluctuations and fluidities?
Yeah, you can do it one of two ways. And I think that there's value, depending on your circumstances and your situation, of having multiple tools at your disposal, right? So sometimes it can be really easy to say, okay, this is how much I know my income is going to be. How am I going to allocate that between the things that I know that I need? And then using that to create your conscious spending plan, right? I know that I have $10,000 a month that's going to be coming in. What are the buckets that's going to go into? Compare that to what the spending has been and see if there's areas where that needs to change, right?
Yeah.
I always think it needs to start from adding up your spending and seeing where the money is going, because you don't know how much you need to allocate into a bucket if you don't know how much your car payment plus your insurance plus your gas is, right? And yeah, there are going to be fluctuations, but write up. And it's just data. It's just a starting point. This isn't like set in stone forever, right? We're going to be adjusting this on a regular basis. The other way that you can create it is to not know necessarily how much income you're going to have, but even if you need to know, like even to create what you know you need to ask for, because sometimes that's even a conversation that's really hard. If you don't even have any idea how much you need, when your lawyer says, we're going to get this much, you go, okay. You don't even know if that's going to be enough or not enough because you don't have awareness of what the buckets are and what the money is that you need to live, right? So sometimes that looks like looking in a couple of different neighborhoods of where you might want to have your house and going and talking and having a conversation with somebody about what the rent is and how much it costs to live there and gathering all of that data so that you know how much it is going to cost, so that then again, you can calculate what all of that spending is going to be so that you can say, well, yeah, you offered me 10, but that's actually not going to be enough. Like I actually need the number to be 15, right? It gives you that information that is more concrete. And when you have more concrete data, you can be more in your power when you're having those financial conversations. When you don't know the numbers, it's very easy just to take what somebody else says as the truth. But when you know the numbers and you know the reason behind it, it's much easier to say, no, actually, $10,000 is not suitable. I need 15. And you know why.
And here's why. That's right. That's right. And this is, the job also, this is why I really always recommend women work with a CDFA, someone who's a certified divorce financial analyst who's going to look at what you need in that way so that you can. I think it is such an important point that you bring up that it's not just, oh, this is what I'm going to get. And so I'll have to figure it out and struggle and, contort myself. But this is what I need. Yeah. And also, assuming that there is that much available in the family, right? Because
knowing what you need could come partially from spousal support, child support, and it might help then what your job needs to bring in, right? Like if it's a situation where you haven't worked in a couple of years because you've been taking care of the kids and all of that, right? Like there's some money that's going to be coming in from the spousal support, the child support, whatever. And then you need to know what salary you need to be looking for when you're going to get a job. That's all part of knowing this data and knowing these numbers. It's not necessarily to just have that money come through the lawyer, right? Like and just through the divorce, but there's also my household needs this amount of money. Great. And I'll tell you what, women are the best problem solvers on earth. So if you're like, if you have the data and this is how much money I need to take care of my house, to take care of my family, you will figure out a way.
You will fucking figure it out.
Figure out a way.
That's right. That's right.
You can't start figuring out a way without knowing the data and what the number is and what you need.
That's right. There are many ways to figure this stuff out. I tell the story of my mother who, was putting herself through graduate school and raising me as a single mom in New York City in the 70s and 80s. And she went to grad school because she was an actor. And eventually someone was like, you're not going to be able to go on tour anymore. You should maybe get your master's so that you can teach. And then she did. She put herself through school. She got her master's, she got her PhD so that she could become a full-time professor because she solved the problem. And part of solving that problem, by the way, was that my godfather bought her a bicycle so that she could ride her bike all over New York City to the different, because, as in grad school, she was an adjunct professor at all these, teaching at all over the place from, City College to NYU. We're talking from up in Harlem down to the bottom of the island. Right. Yeah. And she rode her bike all over because subway and bus fare was dinner. That's how she solved that problem. She was very lucky that my godfather was so generous and, he paid for my school for a couple of years. I mean, he was amazing. But again, she knew enough to go, okay, now my mother also went to the London School of Economics. And so my mother has an Excel spreadsheet for her brain. She can tell you how much milk costs at each store. And this is why I'm such a fucking mess when it comes to money, is that my mom was so I hated it and rebelled against it.
Stop. Why you used to be a mess with money.
Thank you. So now you guys know why
you may continue, but no, you don't get away with it.
You're right. That's right. Now you guys know why I work with Amy. I used to be such a mess with money was because, I was always rebelling. And my mom will literally, she has, literally her brain is a spreadsheet. She will assess the groceries. She has an inventory of the food that's in my refrigerator. Because she knows, well, did you eat this? Did you eat that? You have this, you could have that. Insanity, right? She knew that if she had a bicycle, she knew to ask for a bicycle, that if she had a bicycle, she could save that money and be able to, she didn't have enough money to buy a bike. I'm telling you the story because I think that it's important to highlight that the problem solving can look like a lot of different things.
Yes.
But I love the idea that like, if you don't know the bottom line, if you don't know your numbers,
Yeah.
you don't know what problem there is to solve.
Exactly. Exactly. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to ignore it anymore. You have to look at your numbers. You have to know what's happening. That is the first step of developing any kind of financial literacy. Is just, I mean, for some of my clients, it looks like opening the pile of mail that's been accumulating for months because they're afraid of what's in the envelopes. And this is a great exercise to do with a girlfriend, to do with somebody that is supportive. I do sessions with my clients where literally all we do is open the mail because they were afraid to open the mail. And they open the piece of mail and they hold it up to the Zoom screen. And I say, you can throw that one away. You need to send that one to me. Here's what you need to do with that one, right? Like sometimes it's just about opening the mail. Sometimes it's a lot more than that, sometimes just looking at the bank statement, right? Like, and just allowing yourself the space to learn and grow and not expect that you're going to be so much better tomorrow just because you decided today to start doing this when you haven't been doing it for 30 years, Let yourself have the time, the space, and really pay attention and notice these emotions that are coming up. They're usually some sort of fear and shame. Those are the most common emotions that are about money. And, knowing how you also can do that. So one of the stories that I share, as I said before, I like to go to the gym. I like to lift weights. It makes me feel very powerful to lift something very heavy up and then like run and then like throw it down on the ground. Okay. When I am finished with a workout is where I feel very powerful. That is when I actually do my work with my money because
that's interesting.
I have feelings that come up. When I don't do my work with my money is when I just had a fight with my kid because they wouldn't put their stupid shoes on to get out the door to go to school because we're late and da 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 da. That's not when I come home and work on my money. I don't want to bring that kind of energy into my money time. I very consciously decide when I'm feeling in the right frame of mind to look at my money. It's not I'm not going to do it at all. It's when is the best time for me to do this? And when am I in the best frame of mind? And when do I feel the best in my body, in my emotions, in my spirit, right? Like whatever that is. I feel very calm after I take my dog for a walk. If I know I've got to do something that is the opposite of calm, I'll go for an extra walk and then I'll come back and do that thing. Or I'll know I'm going to go for a walk after. Like it's all about being conscious and aware. I have been doing this money work for more of my life than I haven't been. Yeah. And I still have to go to the gym and lift weights sometimes to deal with some of the money stuff that I have to deal with. It never goes away. I think the idea is that like, once we get better at this, it goes away. And like acknowledging that it never actually goes away. There's a lot of power in that too. And just knowing that you are capable and strong and you can handle it. You just need some tools and you just need to get to know yourself.
Our mutual friend, Barry Tessler, she has all of the, light the candle, get out the chocolate,
our money rituals. I love that. Yep.
Right. And so, but I love the idea of like, it doesn't have to be like calm and peaceful and mindful. And, it can also be like, I'm going to do this now. I can conquer anything.
Wall and then
right? Exactly, right? I just pressed, whatever. And like, so I damn straight I can open this fucking pile of bills. Right. I love
different that. Times call for different emotions, different people, like some people really need like the chill of the candle and the chocolate and the bubble bath and things like that. That's not me. That's not how I feel powerful, but it is. And that's why it's so important that you can't just follow this like blanket advice of financial professionals. Like you have to take that advice and customize it to yourself and really get to know yourself and notice what's happening inside your body and inside your brain when you're going through some of these activities and doing some of this work, and then test out some different things. It took me a long time to realize that I didn't actually want to light a candle and have a nibble of some chocolate before I did my money stuff. Like that works really great for some people. For me, it took me a long time to realize like, I actually really need to do that. Like after I lift something heavy, it was like, right. It took a long time of like experimenting and trying and testing and failing and solving the problem again.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Before we go, I want to ask you about logistics, tools. What are some good tools? Mint is now gone. Everyone said Mint. Mint is gone. YNAB, great tool, but broke my brain. Literally broke my brain. So like, what are some tools that you recommend for people? And again, I know that this is going to be different, right? Because some people love YNAB and it saved their lives. And then for other people like me, it breaks your brain. So what are some of the options out there that, I don't know, that you recommend for people?
This question is always kind of a loaded question for me because too often I think, I do this too, I know you do this too, Kate, but too often I think, oh, this app is actually going to solve my problem. So the problem isn't me. The problem is I just haven't found the right software yet. The problem isn't that I'm not doing the things I should be doing.
Right.
It's that I just don't, I need to put everything into Notion. Oh, I need to use Asana. Oh, I need to, right? Like there's so much of that out there of like, if I just watched one more YouTube video about how to be more efficient, like that's actually going to fix my problem. And it's like, no, actually, that's like probably not. So I actually don't even recommend any tools to folks. Of course, QuickBooks, right? Like you can use QuickBooks if you want, if you have a business, QuickBooks is great, yada, yada, whatever. Okay. I literally tell people to print paper out and do it pencil, paper, highlighter, old school. There is a lot of value in tactile touching when you are at the beginning of your learning journey.
Yes.
There is something so valuable about having that experience, holding that in your hand. Think of yourself as a toddler who is experimenting and touching everything and putting everything in their mouth. And that's how they learn about the world. And that's really the stage that a lot of people are in when they're thinking about their financial journey. And so jumping all the way to putting something in an app is like skipping a lot of that important exploration that really needs to happen. And you can get the same data from just printing out your bank statements, printing out your credit cards, making a list, doing an Excel spreadsheet if you want, using an old school calculator. Like it really doesn't have to be super complicated. And we make it more complicated than it needs to be because we are told that money is complicated and hard. And we are told that this app is going to solve our problems. And we are told that if we only had the right software, then we would have the right answer. And none of those things are true. They are tools. Once you know what your numbers are and you have some understanding, sure, then you can go and use software, right? Like you can do that. But I know anybody who's a parent has had the conversation with their child of you can't have a calculator until you learn to do the math. You have to know how to do the math before you can use the tool of the calculator, right? And then it's like, once you understand how to get the answer, you can use the tool. And we want to skip all of that because we know that that's hard.
It sucks. But I am such an analog person. You know this. I like print everything. I've got paper all over my desk all the time. And it really is. It's true. As I've been working with you and figuring shit out, it's long, arduous process. But I do I have
super fun, exciting, wonderful.
No, so exciting. And working with you is amazing. It's the stuff in between that's, no, it's great. It's amazing. It's amazing. But printing shit out and then putting in Excel, right? Just because Excel's going to do the math for me. I'm going to do the sums. I'm going to have the columns. I need it clean. But yeah, my mom, London School of Economics, man, she does this shit on paper every day. She has a basket of receipts that she through at the end of every year. I feel like we have I do think technology has overcomplicated finances so tremendously, right? We used to go to the bank on Friday afternoons and deposit our checks and take out cash, and that was our money. Oh my God, with our little bank book.
Yep. And now it's so complex and complicated and it's so much. And when you're already feeling overwhelmed about money, and then you decide because you crowdsourced in a Facebook group and somebody that isn't you, doesn't have anything in common with you, told you that YNAB is the solution. I love YNAB also, but it is complex and complicated. Someone tells you, oh my gosh, I used YNAB, it changed my life. You're already feeling overwhelmed and anxious about your money. You open YNAB and you can't figure it out. What does that tell you? It's just reinforcing your thought that you're not good at money, that it's complex and complicated and you can't figure it out. It's like that person doesn't have the same brain as you. They don't know anything about you. They are telling you to use this app that worked for them, but who cares, right? So it really is about just getting the noise out of there so that you can really figure out what it is that you need as a person and allowing that to come through. And then you can go find an app. Sure. There are of them out there. It's really easy to find, but the app is the after.
The app is not the solution to your problems. Oh my gosh. So Amy, how do you work with women? If there are women who are listening to this are like, oh my God, I want her. I need her. Where can they find you? And what do you do with people like me?
We do so many fun things with people. I just love it so much. We do everything from, you can just buy a power hour with me where, if something that we talked about is like resonates with you and you literally just need an hour with me to open your mail, like you can just buy that and I'll open your mail. I literally just show up to a Zoom call and support whatever it is that you need. So I have clients that just buy those when they need them, one off in there. All the way to, if you have a business and you need bookkeeping and payroll and tax returns and yada, 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 all the complicated stuff, we work with people with all of that stuff too. Yes. The best way to learn about all of our services is on our website at empoweredprofit.com. And there's a link. If you look on the website, like I think it says like book a call or work with us or something like that. There's a thing you can fill out. And then it has a link to my calendar where you can book a call. It asks you some information. You can put the information in there. And then if there's something that I think would be more helpful than just having a sales conversation, I email people and I'm like, hey, we could actually just take care of this in a power hour. Like, here's the link to just buy that. And then we don't have to go through a whole sales conversation. Like, we don't have to do that. We can shortcut some of it. So
Right. And that's what I did. I booked a sales call and then I was like, okay, let's do this. Both feet in.
And then we decided together, right? Like there's a lot of different ways, things that I ask clients, like, do you like to work with someone on email or do you want to have phone calls together? Do you, how much of this do you want to do? How much of it do you want me to do? Do you want me to teach you how to do this? Do you want me just to do this? There's so many, like we have packages that we put people into, but they're all customized to like what the individual person needs and where they are in their own financial literacy journey.
Yeah. And that was the thing that sold me the most on you was like, oh, you're going to listen to me.
Yeah. We just meet you where you are.
Yeah. Absolute genius. So empoweredprofit.com. Amy Bradbury, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your incredible wisdom with my audience and for fixing my shit.
We are working together to fix yours.
That's right.
You are putting in the hard work too. You are putting in the hard work too. And you're doing a great job.
And I can attest to the fact that it is a process. It is a process. Yeah, for sure. So, Amy, thank you so much.
It was so much fun talking to you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time. And until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.